everyone, welcome to Riffing with G. I'm Glenn. Tonight we're talking with Lachlan McDonald. Loko is the guitarist, and we're going to find out this, but we're certainly one of the writers for Intrøspect, a local heavy prog rock band who've just put out their first EP. Welcome along, Loko. Thank you, mate.
Thanks so much for having me.
Great no pleasure. Worries. No, so we were just saying before we started off, I just wanted to talk about how your process works for the writing with your band, and then maybe we'll do a bit of contrast with like how we sort of used to do it in the old school way, and see if things improved or gotten worse, or what we can learn from each other.
Yeah, of course. Well, yeah, I think our writing process is well, the whole project started with Jamie approaching me back in end of 2016, early 2017. And it was just him and I, and he had all this great music that he had written just on like Guitar Pro and Logic, and just literally just a bedroom project. And then we did a couple of recording sessions at my house in northwestern Sydney, and it was all good. I thought I knew quite a bit about recording, but it turns out I knew absolutely nothing. Not nothing, but not enough to get us through to a release. But yeah, we released a single back in 2017 called Spark, and it was a bit of a I wouldn't say it was a failure. It was great fun, but there was a lot of things that we could have done a lot better. It was more just like, we want to really get this music out, and then we kind of we took it down, and we're just like, let's just restart. We're going to reset this. And Jamie had all this other music that we wanted to put extra things on. And then we met Felicity Jamie met Felicity at a Pliny gig in 2018. And that's our lead singer, and things just started happening from there. So we were still keen on getting things off the ground, but I think in regards to your process question, it was very much collaborative from the start, and it still is. It's much more collaborative now, but in the age of digital everything, all of our stuff was done in the box, plugins, and Jamie has a Helix floor modeler that we plug into my computer and just do some demos on that. And we just sit down and jam a few things out, but we just bounce off ideas over like Dropbox and Guitar Pro and stuff in the early days. But and in our like that whole learning curve of just trying to make sure things are actually playable, we ended up doing things a bit differently for our second EP, where some of the songs were already written, but they weren't as fleshed out. So the collaboration really came into that, and we went up quite a few times just to flesh out all the parts. And yeah, so it's basically everything we do is in the box until we get into the studio. So I've got 0 outboard gear. I've got 2 monitors. My room's not treated acoustically. I've got a two input interface that we use, and it's just like Logic stuff, and we just put music in and just try. And like I program drums. I've got a few drum plugins that I really like to use, like GGD and MT Power Drum Kit from the olden days, and yeah, it's pretty much all in the box, just like fleshing out demos and getting ideas. They don't sound very good, but you got to get them to a point where they do sound pretty good. And that's where it comes back to what I was saying. I thought I knew a lot about recording, but it turns out I really don't. Just trying to get all the parts right. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Jamie was the more gun.
Yeah, that's right. At the very start. Yeah. So he started off the off the project, and yeah, he asked me to join all those years ago. So it's kind of grown from there, but the process in our writing has very much changed. Like we're much more collaborative, and now we've got Hugo, our 18-year-old drummer prodigy. Like I'd send him drums, and he's just like, I wouldn't play it like that, I'd do it this way. And most of the drum beats that you hear on the EP are some of them are me that he readapted, and then most of them are all him, like especially in Itamori, the one with the sax solo. He sent us that demo when he programmed some drums, and we were just like, oh my, how did you come up with that? That's so cool. So yeah, very, very cool.
Are we talking like, is there any actual like live track drums on the EP? Yeah.
On the first EP there's not. It's all MIDI, but I programmed all those. And it took a long time, because trying to get it right for like a studio release, you have to work really hard to make sure and it took me weeks and weeks to get it right, and it still wasn't quite right. I hear things, I was like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that sounds pretty weird. But look, you get really close. But then all this EP of Midnight Sun, it's all 100% live drums.
Okay, great. Did you ever find yourself in a jam space? It almost sounds like you guys were just sort of like doing it digitally until the songs were complete, and there was not any point where you go like,
Yeah, well, pretty much. But I think it was tricky with the whole lockdown thing last year because we couldn't really meet up that regularly when it's all started. I mean, we don't obviously didn't have a huge lockdown here in Sydney, but it was still a bit dicey in certain spots. So a lot of it was digitally, but then we actually hadn't played the songs all together like in a room before we recorded them, but we all knew them so well already. So, which is really strange because you know, traditionally in the past, we've always had songs completely ready. Like all that, don't get me wrong, all our parts were ready. All what we knew what to play was ready, but we hadn't actually done it in a studio, like in a live session altogether yet. Which is, I didn't see a real problem with it because our process in actually putting it down was actually quite straightforward. In some aspects, in others it wasn't. But I mean, that was the whole point of our trial recording that we did in August, where we just trying to figure out our workflow. We actually ended up having to rewrite a few things, but that was all part of it. We enjoyed that process, and it was good for a good learning experience for us.
Well, I know the Dead Letter Circus work that way. They work everything. All the drums are written on MIDI, and then everyone gets to put their input in. Everything changes and grows, and then once everyone's like, "Yeah, that's the part," then Luke will go home and he will just learn that part. And so it's really like there's not any need for discussion or wasting time in the studio because it's just you go in, you get the part. You don't really need to mess around. You either get it or you don't. You do 2 or 3 passes and you pretty much got everything. So
that's pretty much it. Yeah, and Hugo's amazing with learning the tracks, and inevitably he ends up doing things that are way cooler than whatever I wrote in the first place, or whatever Jamie wrote, or whatever. The essential rhythm parts there. It's like you say, the building blocks are there. You know, there's a lot of things, especially in the song Mjolnir, where I pretty much did all the drums, but then Hugo added his own little flavor. Most of that stuff was already fleshed out. Whereas like in Itamori, for example, there was a few sections that we kind of needed a bit more of a driving force, and he had this really sick like 5/4 against groove where the sax solo comes in for the big section. And like it was so sick just to hear that come out in the studio. So yeah, I remember being in there when he was recording one of the middle sections of Itamori, and he did a fill at that, it just completely spontaneously, and I just jumped out of my chair and I was like, oh my god, that's the coolest thing ever. So yeah, it's very, like you say, yeah, the building blocks are there and then it just kind of builds from there.
Yeah, I always would like to, it didn't happen so much with the Butterfly Effect stuff, but certainly whenever any of my solo releases, I always like to have the drummer go for the part as written, like, because I do the same thing. I demo everything using Easy Drummer, and have him go for the part, and then I always say for like the last 2 passes, I go, just go crazy, like do something that
just forget about it.
That taste would dictate that you just shouldn't do. Just
yeah,
overplay like anything, and it ends up being the thing that we end up getting those kind of dynamic fills and things that you just kind of go, oh, that's pretty wild.
It's extra bit of spice on top that you just like.
Yeah, totally.
We definitely need that. Yeah.
What was it like? Maybe give us a picture of what it was like in the jam room the first time getting ready to play the stuff live. What was that feeling when you finally got counted into that, you know, that first jam? How was that feeling?
Well, I remember feeling. So the first song that we rehearsed out of the new ones, because we already knew that, and also like Luke, our new bassist, he came in, hearing him play the parts the first time. We had already learnt our Ad Astra EP, our first one, so we already knew we could play those songs fairly well. I wouldn't say amazingly, but we could play them pretty well. And coming back was like, you know, getting back on a bike. But then we played Mjolnir for the first time in the studio, like a few weeks before we went and played with Bad Moon Born at Crowbar. And I remember just like getting to the end and just going, holy shit, that actually didn't sound too bad. Just, yeah, because we all understood, we knew our parts really well, but it was just like it was the kind of the golden rule of rehearsing. Like you learn your parts like back to front, and then when you come in, it's just a matter of just fleshing it out and putting it together. And then you don't have to actually run it through too many times. You don't have to learn the parts already learnt. You've just got to kind of just put in the hard yards in the room to make sure it just gels and we've got all the right levels and stuff. And it actually was very surprising. I remember just like getting to that last section and just like massive smile on my face, just going, holy shit, we're doing it.
That's great, man.
So it was really cool. Yeah. And same with the other songs, like exactly the same thing. Because we've only played Mjolnir and Wisdom live. For the other songs we haven't actually done yet. We haven't fleshed out, but we're all still learning the parts. So once we head into into the rehearsal room, it'll be a different story. But with Wisdom, for the same thing, we just played it. We're just like, wait a minute, this actually sounds pretty cool. So maybe we can do this. But it's like it's just the musicians get stuck in their own heads and just go, shit, this doesn't sound good at all. But then when you get in there, it's like, oh, actually, it's not too bad. So we record ourselves, listen back, and it's like, yeah, we have to, yeah.
There's almost the essential. I've always found that the recording process is almost the essential learning process that now, so as I was saying, to compare and contrast, it was quite a different process for us. We were just old school, just always in the room at 11 till 3 every day. Somebody bring an idea and we just play and play and play and play and play.
Yeah,
so
it's very different.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was. I think that's maybe as a result of the fact that there was more money in the industry at that time as well. So we could do a tour, or we could sell some records or get some publishing, and that would pay for a permanent jam space for the year, and we wouldn't have to be kind of like thinking about that sort of stuff, you know. And I think with the loss of income, you kind of, it's almost like the Uberization of the thing, really, you know, like there's less money, but it's kind of, the technology now at least exists so that you can still make something on par without having to like spend heaps of cash, you know, because plugins are so good, program drums are so good.
That's right. Yeah, there's a bit of a trade-off. Like that experience you get when you write something in a room with everyone for the first time. It's just like there's just the euphoria of knowing you've just gotten onto something sick. But
totally.
And then going to the studio and spending all that money, and then you got a bit of a bill at the end. But like the other trade-off is that like if we write it all in the box and then we come together, it's like we actually end up spending more time in the studio kind of refining things, which is fine, but you know, you actually end up allocating a budget for it anyway, rather than just saying, oh, we've just got this space, we'll go in and write some music. It's very much a stipulated process where we start and then we end up, you know, saving money in the long term, I think.
Did you just have the one guy doing the engineering and mixing, or did you have a couple of guys involved?
Yeah, Chris Blancato. Also, the mixing was done by George Lever, who's done like Sleep Token and Woven War and Loathe. He's amazing. He's based in the UK, so it was really cool working with him. But we went back to Chris, who is just an absolute legend of the recording scene, especially with heavy music. Like he's done Northlane and Glass Ocean and all those guys. Awesome, really, really awesome dude to have around. Like we're good mates with him, and his process is like, I just want to save time. I don't want to save, like the songs are there. I just want to save time. So in the studio, we can, if we come to a standstill for something that we need to fix or flesh out, we've got the time to do it rather than sitting there and like, so one perfect example is that we only used his guitars, which were fitted with Evertunes. And we change the strings every day when we're doing the rhythm guitars, and we wouldn't have to touch the tuning at all day. And that probably saved us countless hours of just tuning after every single take. So it's just that kind of stuff, which he's really, really good with. He's really figured out his process, and we're still learning off him. Like, you know, the first EP was a huge learning curve for us. This second EP was an even bigger learning curve for us. So it's so good to have someone like that who's just, he's not afraid to speak his mind. He's like, guys, this sounds shit. Fix it. Okay, yep, agreed. It does sound shit. Okay, we'll fix it. It's not in like well, I don't mean to say that he's rude to us or anything. Quite the opposite. It's like it's really good to have that transparency, because there's so much more that you can learn off other people than thinking that you just have that mindset of like, oh, I know exactly what I'm doing. I absolutely don't know what I'm doing all the time, but I have a pretty good idea. But the more that I can learn off other people, the better it becomes. So Chris was awesome for that. Yeah.
I think it's a producer thing that they're usually pretty bossy, and they can be they're good at holding their tongue until they're not, and then they're usually all a little bit the good ones anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Well, if Chris listened to this, sorry mate, you're absolute legend, you know that. But yeah, it was good to have that transparency.
I mean, we worked with a guy in the US, Joe Barisi, who's done the last 2 Tool records, and he's a gun, obviously. But he changed the whole direction of the band. We were all drop C guitars and that sort of stuff, and, you know, just sort of still coming out of the new metal era sort of thing. And he was all about, you know, Malcolm Young Gretches and JCMs and the sound that you get in the microphone. You should try and get the sound in the microphone, not, you know, there should be no post work if you can avoid it. Hates Pro Tools, hates all these things. But we came out of it, and from doing albums that were all drop C, we had songs that were in just straight standard tuning because it just God changed our title attitude.
That's cool.
He was a bit of a he was the kind of producer that he beat us around with a stick for 6 weeks, and we did improve. We came out of it better, but it was still kind of a whew.
It's pretty draining. Yeah, I think the Chris was good for that. He didn't quite beat us with a stick, but there was probably a few times where he was thinking about it. But it was good. Like that's why in August, like we met up with him in July and we sent him the demos, and he was like, "Look, guys, it's cool. I think this is a good new direction, but we just got to try a few new things. Like last time we didn't do this very well. Let's try to do it better this time." And ended up we did our recording session in July where we just tried to put a few things down for one of the songs, and he basically, we cut it halfway through and he just said, "Guys, it's sounding cool, but there's things that you have to change. And like, there's a lot of things that are not sounding good when you're recording them, and just it's a bit too technical. We just got to focus on some other stuff, like more melody or like some more texture stuff, rather than just focusing on the tech stuff." And I agreed. I was like, "Yep, that's fine. Let's just listen to all the songs and figure out what we can do." Ended up having to change quite a few sections on each of the songs, but like we didn't mind because it actually served the song better. It meant we could play with more textures and melodies and dynamic levels and different vocal harmonies, and it just gave way. Like we put one thing to the side and it gave way to all this other really cool stuff that we could have done, and George actually enhanced it with his mixing over in the UK. So it was an awesome experience, and I'll 100% be working with Chris again for sure.
I'm actually going to suggest because we're looking for a producer at the moment as well, so we suggest the boys to at least have a chat about him. Obviously our sound's not quite as like in that progressive sound as much, but
he does like a lot of different stuff. Like he does heaps of stuff, and he's recording like drums. I haven't heard anyone record better drums than him at the moment. I obviously haven't. He's awesome. I haven't met that many engineers in Sydney that do record drums really well, to be fair, but I think Chris is an amazing drum recorder, especially, and everything else, to be fair.
I'm always curious with bands that have two guitarists. Do you find that, say for your parts, you're doing the doubles and the harmonies, and then Jamie, for example, is then, if it's something that like happens to be like a dual harmony thing on a riff, or like where you're both doing like a pick harmonic on a bend or something like that. Does one of you do it so that it's tighter, or do you both kind of have a thing where it's like you do your own thing? You'll do the left and he'll do the right, or whatever. Yeah,
it's a bit of a mix. So, for example, there's a few songs where Jamie pretty much did all of it because he understood the parts a little bit better, which is fine. Like I learnt them, but I mean, he was much more around them. So for me, I did all the rhythms on Mjolnir, except for the last little breakdown, which we wrote together. Itamori, same thing. Leap of Faith, I think he did. Sorry, Itamori, he did most of the rhythms for that. But that was one we had to really rewrite. And same with, there's a few little sections where we kind of chop and change, but it wasn't so much like, you do this part, I'll do this part. I did most of like the lead stuff and the kind of more technical riffy stuff. Jamie did much more of the chuggy, more lower heavy stuff. So we kind of complement each other that way. So it's more like, I did all the pinch harmonics and the bends and the vibrato stuff, and then Jamie would do all the really heavy chugging stuff. So that was the kind of direction we did. But if there was like a section where he'd be like, "Oh man, I'm not quite getting this," then I'd jump in and try and do it. And it's like, "Oh, it sounds a bit better," but I mean, we'll keep trying it. So it's and then like I could be struggling with a bit, and Jamie comes in and just smashes it. I was like, "Oh, sweet, we're good."
I do want to hear a little bit about your past, but I'm aware that you do the guitar thing. You've played drums in your previous band for a while, or at this project. I'm not sure. I wasn't sure. You could be able to let me know, of course. And you said you studied. Well, I read your the article on Sense Music Media, and mentions that you play the sax, that you studied sax at uni.
Yep, I did. Yes.
Now I was watching a John Petrucci interview, and he's talking about like his discipline. Music is discipline, and the hours and hours that he spent, getting everything tight. Is it hard staying across the technical requirements of, say, 3 instruments or more, if you play more, the amount of practice that's required across the board to remain at a level of proficiency across all those instruments? Because it's one thing to be able to like play an 8-beat on the drums and hack away at the bass and then be like a great shredder or whatever, as opposed to being a great shredder as well as a competent sax player and a competent drummer. Is there a lot of
It was tricky. Yeah, it is tricky. I will be honest. Like I I did a lot of hard work at uni on my saxophone playing, and I got myself to a level where I'm pretty comfortable. I could play anything I was put in front of me, but it'd take me a bit of time to get up to speed. But I wouldn't say that I'm at that same level on guitar. I feel like I get asked this fears like, "What's your favorite instrument?" And I never quite know how to answer because I love them all so much. Like I love the expressive nature and the kind of catharsis I get from playing the guitar and listening to all my favorite guitar players and hearing what they do and just trying to copy it and just trying to experiment a little bit more. But like with saxophone, like the expression you get from playing classical music or jazz music, it's a very different ball game. So I wouldn't say that I'm absolutely at the level that I am on guitar for sax as opposed to saxophone. But like I have found it tricky to balance the hours you have to put in. Like I've absolutely have not put in the same amount of hours on guitar, but on saxophone I have. But it's hard to explain. Like I'm thinking about how much work I have done on both of them. It's kind of it's been a really long process. Like I wouldn't say that I've been playing guitar seriously for less than 10 years. Like I got given a guitar when I was in year 7 at school and I just muck around. I never got lessons or anything. And then I was always saxophone was more what I was doing. And then I'd just play guitar on the side and then went to uni for saxophone and did the same thing. And then I started picking up guitar again. And again, it was just learning and recording myself through that. And that's where the practice came in for guitar. So I would say, yeah, the balancing act has been pretty tricky, but I think saxophone is taking a bit of a backseat at the moment because I'm not doing as much playing as I used to at uni, which is fine. I still love playing it, don't get me wrong, but yeah, the guitar is what I'm definitely focusing on more for now because I think I do have a bit of catching up to do.
Do you think that some of that jazz harmony made its way into the writing of this, or is it just such different beasts?
Yeah, I think it did. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of moments that you can add, ninths and sharp 11s or playing like the Lydian mode or something like that. Just all that kind of stuff can lend itself to adding some extra spice, if you will, keep using that word, into layers. I mean, if you just use major triads and stuff, nothing wrong with that. But I mean, to add a few different colors and different colors to sounds I think is really cool. So yeah, I try and include as much of that as I can, but obviously I try and put like a C major 9, flat 13, sharp 11 or something like it. It's just, there's no point. It doesn't really serve the music. So about the furthest I'll go is a 9th, I reckon, when writing.
But I think that's also with a lot of those sort of open string low riffs, whilst they probably are constructed around a scale, a lot of the time they have kind of an ambiguous nature to them sometimes.
There's a bit of a weird tonal sense, huh? Yeah, that's right.
So you're almost free to kind of explore. It's almost like a pedal tone in some ways, and you're free to sort of explore harmonies within that space.
Yeah, that's essentially how I wrote Mjolnir. It was like the whole section in the middle. I didn't think of it as like I need to write with modal interchange. I didn't think about that at all. It just kind of happened because I liked kind of the weird chromatic movement you get when you borrow chords from parallel modes. And so like in the middle section where it's in C minor, then A flat major, and then it goes to F major, but none of those chords are actually in the same key together. C minor, A flat major, and then F major. So those chords are kind of borrowed from different modes. So that's where the interest comes from. So it's not a matter of to say, oh, I need to write like this. It just happens. And like you say, the pedal tone at the start, especially, it lends itself to adding a few extra layers and different colors. So that's where it really started.
I think I sometimes fall into, sometimes my sounds can be a bit stock because although I'm aware of modal interchange, I still end up sticking within kind of like a diatonic space.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah, safety is good. You need the safety of diatonic chords, don't you?
But I'm really in that place where I listen back to write something and I listen back to it and I go, yeah, but I really just wish it wasn't, A minor, F and G over that riff, or substituting A minor, D minor, and G and going, oh, well, cool, well, that's just, really just the same thing anyway.
Yeah, that's why I really like writing in modes, because you have all those different chords that kind of sound really strange over one another, and then even like a pedal note or a drone or something underneath, it makes it really cool to kind of explore different harmonies and different colors.
I really do love the sound of a woodwind over heavy music though, like in Itamori.
Yeah, I agree, man. It was weird. Like I never wanted to put that in just to be like, oh, where I play sax, let's just put a sax solo in. That might be cool. Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't like that because that whole section was just, it was pretty quiet and kind of spacey, and I was going to put like a lead line over it. I was just like, why don't you put a sax solo here? I mean, I was thinking about doing it. I was like, you know what? As cliche as it is, having a sax solo in a song is cool, but you can make it sound pretty naff. So I thought I wanted to make it a bit more floaty. And I think it contrasts really well with the whole section. It just comes out of nowhere, really, and it's just like, oh, I didn't expect that to happen. So I think it serves the song really well. Like, it wasn't my intention to have a sax solo for the sake of it. It was just like it needed something, and that's what it was. So
yeah, we did this, we put a trumpet on one of our tracks back in the day, and it was that same thing. We had a jazz guy come in, and he actually touches everything in this particular we've just been talking about. He just sat in there and played a little blue, just a little bit more than what you would expect, and it's actually a really nice texture to get away from, because we had two sections that really were completely different tempos, and we needed some way of sort of bridging them.
Getting back into it,
just a little bit of space and just let the trumpet go for a while, and it was really nice and unexpected.
And when I put it in originally, I had the drum beat that we originally put in, and then Hugo sent me the drums with the demo drums that he wrote, and I was like, oh man. I re-recorded the solo just to try and fit his drum, and it's just like, it's coming together finally. It's so cool. So yeah, when things start working really well, it's awesome.
That's another example of your process right there. That's great. I love, speaking of like your arranging and that sort of stuff, I think it's a really confident move to have such dramatic dropouts in all of your songs. Well, I'm not all, certainly in 3 or 4 of them you're pretty much content to go with no drums, mostly a vocal line, but usually a really great hook though as well. That's generally where you find that you hook.
It's good trying to find those areas where you can leave a bit of space, especially in prog, is quite valuable, I think, and it really kind of resonates with people that don't quite listen to the genre as much.
Yeah.
So I've sent it to all my friends that just are absolutely not metalheads, but they're just like, man, I really, really dig this. This is like a lot of things that I like, but some things that I don't, but work really well because it serves a song. It's like, yeah, well, that was our plan.
Just get rid of that first intro bit and that outro bit, and just, can we have more of her singing that really nice,
Yeah, that's right. More of her singing. And why is there screaming in there? It's like, oh.
Yeah. It almost strikes me as something that, because it's so sparse, you could actually, someone who was more of a DJ kind of person could actually cut it and turn it into, it makes it easy for remixing.
Yeah. Oh man, that'd be cool. If anyone's listening to this as a DJ, hit us up. We'd absolutely want to do that. That'd be cool.
You need content, we need content. Let's just keep it coming.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, keep it coming.
Was the decision to go EPs sort of based upon the way that people are consuming music these days?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's the age of instant gratification. I think albums, this is a personal opinion, I don't think it's financially viable for us to do albums at the moment. I don't think it'll be consumed as well.
Yep.
I think because we're still a very young band, we're only just really starting out. I think doing a full length would just kind of shoot us in the foot, and we'd probably end up in more debt that we'd have to pay off. So I think EPs are a good little kind of taster into what we can do. And having done 2 of them now, I think it's really good. It's still growing. Like we're still seeing our listeners climb and stuff. So I think having a full length, people might get intimidated, say, oh man, this band's only just released an EP and a full album. I was like, I don't know. It's how good it's going to be. So I think quality over quantity is where we wanted to sit with it, I think. And we have talked about doing it full length, but it's not really in the immediate pipeline.
I think I was more thinking about the idea that in the past bands would release 2 or 3 singles, and then like Living End, for example, they'd have 2 or 3 singles out, or an EP, the Second Solution Prisoner of Society EP comes out, and then when their debut record comes out, then they put like 3 of the 4 songs they've already had out on that record.
Yeah.
But there's really no point on Spotify. You could put Ad Astra on to this EP so that it's on the track listing, but what would be the difference between someone just getting onto your page and playing it?
Just going, I just want to hear Ad Astra, and there it is. Like, I totally agree. So maybe we will, but look, it's not in the immediate pipeline. Hopefully, if we start taking off a bit, then we could get it into the budget, but I guess we'll see. It's hard to tell.
If you did a tour, I always thought that maybe you would then choose to do it on vinyl, and then you might choose an extended set list to then.
Yeah, that we have thought about. That we have actually thought about, because I think vinyl is making a comeback, a triumphant comeback, and I'm in a lot of Facebook groups where people are talking about, you know, sharing vinyls and all the ridiculous prices that some people are selling Amity Affliction vinyls, or like, you know, Bring Me the Horizon vinyls. Like they're selling for over $500. Like, man, I'm obviously not saying we're going to sell on a vinyl for $500 of our own stuff, but yeah, it's we're thinking about, we're talking about it with our publicist, and yeah, it could be cool to try and put something in the pipeline later in the year, because yeah, like the vinyl resurgence is coming back. But I think the way we do it, we'd have to do like a bit of a, hey, who wants to buy a vinyl, you know, do a poll, and then so we can get like 2/3 of the funding there. So at least, because if we dump all this money on vinyls, we have like 200 vinyls that we don't sell. It'd be better to have a demand for it rather than a huge amount of supply and no one wants to buy them. So we just got to think about it a bit more, I think.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I wonder what success looks like for a prog metal band starting out in Australia, and what you see the next 5 years being, and what would make you happy if in 5 years you ended up in that place and you could look and go, this is exactly what I want.
Yeah, I think the comparison is the root of all misery, I think, for some things. But I think in this situation, I really like to, like North Lane, a band that I massively look up to, and I was lucky enough to actually play a sax solo on Alien, so which was really cool. And so when Chris asked me to come in and do it, I was, you know, completely shocked, and like I've always looked up to those guys, and it was just like a complete mindfuck. Anyway, that was a bit of a name drop, sorry. The goal that we want to set is, like, you know, doing the big festivals, and, you know, playing Unify would just blow my head right off. Doing something like that would be awesome. Doing a tour where we can comfortably fill a room like 500 people and just play and just have people really connect with the music. I think touring is where I definitely want to be, whether or not internationals return over the next few years. But I think we're all on the same page, like playing those big festivals, doing shows where we can comfortably sell them out, selling merchandise, and just making it like a worthy investment for us, because we put so much time and money into it, and we like it. It's not to say that we that's the be all and end all. We have to do that to be happy. I'd be happy if we just keep doing this and it doesn't go that far. But like, I want to be able to get onto those big festival lineups and support massive bands, and just share what we do with the world, and just see how we go with it. Really, it's you know, just keep recording music. I'm never not going to be doing music. You know, I'm a music teacher as well, so like classroom, it's just my entire life. So I'd want to have that on the side as well. The teaching on the side as well as the professional career, for sure.
Yeah.
On doing those big festivals, I think.
Does everyone in the band have day gigs of some sort, generally speaking?
Yeah, they do. Well, Jamie's a cinematographer, so he does quite a bit of freelance work. He's working on the new Marvel movie at the moment, which is pretty cool.
Awesome.
Like he's doing some help out there, and then Hugo does some day work too. Felicity works at Rode Microphones, actually. So she's doing a lot of really good work there. And then Luke as well. He's a software engineer. So Great. We're all just doing our own little things, and basically just funding the band. So
that's perfect.
That's what we're doing in the meantime. Yeah, and it's working so far. So we're just going to keep at it. I mean, the only thing is that we haven't, you know, we don't rehearse every single week, but when it comes to a show, we get back into the rehearsal room and get back into it. So
it doesn't really seem like you need it. I mean, I'm based down here in Sydney. We have a permanent rehearsal space in Brisbane, but I've, you know, as you can imagine, I've set foot in it probably once in the last 15 months or something. So, you know, we're pretty much, right. And this is the advantage that you have, is that I'm fully over the technology, but 3 other guys in our band are not, and so we run into real impasses with me being down here and our ability to kind of keep moving forward, because I like send them ideas or whatever, and then I don't hear from them for a while, and it's like, well, I'm guessing that it's just partly because the digital fluency is not quite as high, you know.
Yeah, I think we're lucky in that aspect. We've got that real digital fluency in our band, so it's very easy to get things across and stuff like that. So it's good on one side.
I didn't ask a lot about your upbringing. I'm always really interested to see what you know, the process that leads people into music. Was there music in your house growing up? Was that where you sort of first got into it?
All the time, yeah. So I'm a family of 5. My elder sister and younger brother, and then my 2 parents are still living up in northwestern Sydney, where I grew up. And yeah, I think music ever since I was like really, really small has always been a huge part of our lives. I was thinking about this earlier in case I was asked, and like in our car trips going down the South Coast, my mum and dad would put this cassette tape on that they made in the 80s of all these incredible bands. There's like 40 songs on there. And we've actually got a Spotify playlist of these songs that they had. They're all from different bands, but it's like, that's all they played. And we were just, singing along to all these songs. There's like Dobie Gray, Genghis Khan was on there, like the Moscow song that was on there, like Dire Straits, Pink Floyd, all these incredible bands. And yeah, so that was a big part of it. But my dad's actually a drummer. So he grew up playing music as well. And the way it started, I think I was about 6, and it was his 40th birthday, and Mum got him a drum kit for his birthday, and all these mates who were playing, like his old band from high school, they played at the 40th, and it was great fun. Like I don't really remember much of the night. I was 6, I wasn't drunk. But what happened was they went and had a break. They went outside for a beer, and I came in and I just started jamming on the drums, and they were just like, who's that on the kit? Like, we're all out here. And then they saw it was like little 6-year-old me just having a shred, and apparently I was just playing just some beat from a song I'd heard, and I was like, what's going on? So that's where I guess that's where it was kind of recognized. But I also have to shout out my first proper music teacher, Rosanna. There's a place in Sydney called Rosanna's Musical Jam House that ran from about 95 to about 2003. And Rosanna is this amazing, amazing teacher who just made music so much fun. But at the same time, we learnt so much. Like we'd spend the first hour of our lessons learning piano and saying, all right, here's a major chord, here's a minor chord, here's a diminished chord. And I was like 8 or 9 at the time, just doing all this cool stuff. And then after that, we'd have the Wednesday night jam band where we just go, right, guys, what are we playing tonight? Let's play this song. All right, let's write a blues. Let's do this. So that's where it all kind of started. That's where I kind of experimented with the other instruments. So yeah, doing piano there and then playing drums. And then that's when I picked up saxophone, and then guitar came much later. But that was such a formative time of my music upbringing because it just got me into playing with other people and just experiencing the joy of playing with other people. And when I got to high school, it just kept growing because I picked up a guitar, and then I just get into a band room and just shred and play absolute nonsense and shit. But it was fun because we were just making noise and being mates, And it just kind of grew from there. I actually played a gig on the weekend with a mate of mine who we played in a band together in high school. And he's an awesome, awesome bass player. And the first song we ever played together was Can't Stop by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And that was in 2006. And we played it on the weekend. So it's just like every time we play it all together, it's just like, man, we're just back to those, time 15 years ago. We were just playing all these tunes. And yeah, it was so cool. So yeah, that's kind of really where it all started. And the day I heard my first ever metal song, I was over at a mate's house, and someone showed me As I Am by Dream Theater. And I heard the guitar solo, and I lost my mind. I was just like, how on earth can someone play like that? That is insane. And then I just went down the slippery slope of metal.
I was way into Awake, I think was the record, which was 94.
Phenomenal.
And that was the first time I ever encountered metric modulation.
Yeah. That's where it started for me too. Listen to Tesseract and Periphery. It's like, that's where they got it from, surely.
Well, I wanted to bring that into odd times, because I remember thinking I worked out Erotomania. And it had there was a transcription of something in Guitar World magazine. I was like, I worked it out, and it made me start thinking that I reckon there's 2 ways of feeling, or 2 ways of approaching odd time. And I reckon there's for guitar anyway, at least, it's almost riff based, something like the main riff in Erotomania. I don't even know what that meter is. But I know what frets it goes on, and then it's got an open fret, and then it plays this run, and then you don't have to worry about thinking about it. But then there's that second thing when it goes to the I think it's 10 and 11/8. But I mean, whilst that has got a fret element to it, I feel that that's just a math thing. You just go, all right, cool, it's 2 lots of, or 3 lots of, like a 9/8 bar, and then a single hit, and then a 9/8 bar, and then 2 single hits, or something like that.
Yeah.
how do you approach the odd time stuff
Ah,
in your
I
music?
think yeah, I think how it's, well, like you said, Erotomania, like the early Dream Theater albums are just so formative for everyone. Like I remember hearing, again, As I Am, even though there's not many time signature changes in that, but just I think hearing a downbeat for me was really important. Just trying to know how many beats to count in between,
Yeah.
and just knowing when to focus when the actual downbeat is. And I think being a drummer originally kind of helped with that, and learning the songs that Portnoy was playing on drums first, and then I had the ability to do that, which is really cool. So going to another instrument was a bit easier. But the way I thought about it, I remember when I figured this out, it kind of blew my mind. It's probably not old news, but I would think of it like if I was ever struggling to count something, I'd just try and think of the subdivision that it's being counted in. So if it's in 7, you think like 7/8, for example, I would try and count in crotchets, and I know that every second bar I'll land on a downbeat if I just clap crotchets, like like I just end up coming back to it. It takes a bit of time to do it, or like yeah. So doing that kind of stuff was really helpful for me, and the odd timing stuff I think is just a matter of listening to so much of that kind of polymetric, polyrhythmic D word, gent, I guess, and just figuring out where the actual downbeat is, and just always knowing where that pulse is the whole time. Doesn't matter where you put everything else, as long as you can figure out where the pulse is and you know where at least the downbeat is. So I think with writing, especially with Mjolnir, I really wanted to do that thing where you go from 6, like like just having that kind of change. So I'm still thinking of the subdivision of 6, but I'm always thinking about where that pulse and the downbeat is at the same time to try and lock into it, I guess.
Well, I was counting my way through that Mjolnir, and I was just like, it doesn't. It's one of those things that doesn't really feel like where you can certainly conceptualize it as it doesn't. And again, this is just my cursory appraisal of it. So please be like, oh, he's telling me how my song is, and you fucked it up, you know. But it feels like,
of course, I love hearing this.
Yeah, it feels like I can, if I mean, I had to restart the section like 3 or 4 times to make sure that I didn't keep losing where the 1 was. But I was like, if I felt like I powered through it, even though I was up on the up a couple of times, it still stays. It still seems to stay in 6. And
it is definitely in 6 the whole time. Yeah.
The Carnival do that thing, and it's in that As I Am too. I went and had a listen to that. There's a thing where drummers love to do that thing where they do the fakey odd time, where they go like displacement. It's still straight, yeah. And that Coat song, you know, moves the snare, so you feel like it's like gone to an odd time. But then if you go, hang on a second,
it's still in 4,
pulling up the up in the end,
yeah. Hugo does that a lot. When we first played Mjolnir, like we played it, and then he tried a few. That's what I love about his drumming. Like he tried a few different things. Like at the end of Mjolnir with the breakdown, he did an extra thing that kind of put it back into 6, because it's in like, and then you go back into 6, and we're just like, holy shit, what? Wait a minute, it still works. Let's do it again. So yeah, it's really cool to have that moment where you're like, oh shit, it still works.
In that sort of simplistic way, I find that finding out that like the middle of 46 and 2 by Tool involves each of the instruments adding an extra beat in at the end of their rounds. But one adds the beat in at the start of the round, and one adds the at the end of the round. So I think it's when it's doing when the bass and the guitar are playing over doom 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 doom, and you hear the tom, and that brings everything back around in unison. But then one delays back a beat. And I was like, that's that same thing with like hearing the hands.
Yeah, just hearing that downbeat. Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm amazing at it though, because I could feel it in a basic sense, but like, man, I still listen to CAFO by Animals with Leaders. I still can't fucking figure out that song. It's just ridiculous. Like, but in the middle section where it goes dun 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 dun, and it's shifted a semiclaver. It's just like, oh my, I just can't figure it out. Any of those 16th rhythms. Oh yeah, that's where I draw the line. It's just like, don't ask me to displace by 16. I just can't do it.
So, I did. I'll wind up. There's a couple of questions I'd like to finish at the end, but I was wondering. I did start thinking. Do you get to a point where you're you know, you're 5 years, 10 years down the track, and you're still kind of playing 300 cap rooms in your hometown, and somebody writes like a Paramore riff or something, and you go, that's just, it's, you know, 3 minutes 42 pure cheese, and everyone that hears it goes, that's sick. Do you make the transition, or do you see a point where you would go less proggy, or does that just totally ruin the whole purpose of doing music in the first place for you?
No, I don't think so. I think it would be naive of me to say that would, like, now I would be like, it's not really us right now. But I think it would be naive to say that it would completely ruin it. I don't think it would at all, because you know, bands grow over the years, and, you know, bands change. Like, perfect example, Architects, the new album just came out. I love that album. It's so good. I love the sound that they're taking. It's such a good step forward, but a lot of people hate it, which I don't really understand. So I've seen so, it's so massive, and I fucking love that album. It's so good. I've listened to it like 8 or 9 times, like just back to front, and it's just, it's awesome. But like, it's a different sound to when they originally started, and it's different sound from the previous album, and the album's different to that. So I think in a band's progression, it would be remiss of me to say that we're not going to progress, pardon the pun, but like, we're not going to like change our sound. I wouldn't say it's going to drastically change, but I think we're going to experiment more and see what happens. And then if it starts really working, you know, that's absolutely going to happen. But I mean, if it's a cheesy song, then fine. And then people don't like it, it's like, all right, fine. We're not writing to a formula. If we write it, play your old stuff. Play out Astra.
That sucks. Used to be good. What happened?
It used to be heavy, man. Yeah, what the fuck? Where's that gent? It's like, oh. Yeah, but I think it's gonna change. I think, but I mean, in a good way. I think it's just how bands grow, and we get better as we keep going, I guess. Better or worse, don't know. We'll see.
What's the low tuning on some of those riffs? I mean, I assume there's probably some different tunings, but if there's like a low A or something in.
We're in drop F.
Drop F. So when that some of the main riffs, say like the low riff in Mjolnir, is that a low F? That's.
Yeah, it's a drop F. Yeah.
That's drop F. Okay,
it's
cool.
It's pretty low. It's pretty low. But so that song is in C standard with a drop F on a second string.
Cool.
But the other songs like Leap of Faith and Star's End and also Itamori, that's in like, so it's drop B flat with a drop F. So technically, it's like it's the North Lane tuning.
Okay. There's something about that. Do you using the neural DSP stuff at all?
Yeah. Love it. I've got Archetype plenty. I absolutely love it.
Because there's something about the tone of those super dropped strings, and what sort of gauge we're talking there? Is it like? So
I've got
80 or something.
Yeah, so it's an 80 on my. Yeah, I've got my little capo here because I was practicing. So it's a 27 inch to 25 and a half, but I'm actually going to go lower. I'm going to buy I think a Balaguer guitars. I don't know how to pronounce it. A Balaguer, I don't know. I'm going to get a 28 and a half, I think, to get a little bit lower and then chuck an Evertune in it. But yeah, at the moment, I think I've got an 80 on this. It's just a bit floppy. It's not too bad, but it doesn't hold tuning that well. And the rest of it's about 12 to 56.
Okay.
So it's pretty low, but I reckon when we get a lower scale length or longer scale length, I'll probably end up just, chucking a slightly lighter string or even a slightly heavier string on it just to see.
Is it a 6-string?
But I guess we'll see. It's a 7-string, this one. This is my main one. Yeah, cool. I think I recorded 3 pinch harmonics on this guitar in the whole recording session. We didn't actually use it at all. Yeah.
Because there's something about the tone, especially with those neural plugins, I think that sometimes you can't tell whether it's, and that's why I said, was it A, because the A string on a bass is usually like 80, 85, so it has that same sort of thing. That's right. So when you're really distorting, look at this, here's my new flash webcam. So funny. Find me again, webcam. Find me. I'm just here. Anyway, you don't need to see me. It's not that interesting. It'll come back. But yeah, there's something about those neural DSP plugs that you can't sometimes tell whether it's a bass or a
that's right.
Guitar,
I wouldn't use one of those plugins for. It's great for demos. It's really good for demos. Yeah. I mean, I don't know a huge amount about recording anyway and getting reamping guitar tones. Like, I mean, I know what a good guitar tone sounds like. I wouldn't tell you how to do that. But I mean, for example, George reamped all our guitar DIs on his custom Gower. It's like a JCM modded. JCM 800, I think. It's like a guy over there modded it for him. Yeah. It sounds massive. It just got this really amazing snarl in the mid-range. But yeah, with plugins, I haven't been able to quite get that same tone. Again, pretty basic with my knowledge on how to do it, but I mean, I'll just pay someone to to do it for me, I guess.
And that's why. Why he has that's probably why he has that amp, because it's just impossible for me to get it otherwise. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, and it's an amazing sounding amp. When I heard the first reamps, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Wow, this is huge. This is massive.
Excellent. Well, Lockie.
Yeah.
I always want to call you Lockie. That's always the standard Lachlan nickname, but Loko
Lockie,
is...
Yeah, Locko. It does my fun. Loko's a good day.
Sorry, I didn't mean to offend you.
Awesome. All right.
But 2 standard questions at the end of every chat.
Shoot.
Any podcasts, YouTube channels, books, other sort of media that you consume on the reg that might be interesting for people to check out? Yeah.
So other musicians, the Riff Hard podcast, I've been smashing that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've been just going back through the episodes, because they do talk a lot about music, but it's a lot about like touring and being in a band and having personal relationships with people in bands and knowing how to interact. So it's a really, really good podcast for that stuff.
Yeah.
Love the Hamish and Andy podcast as well. That's a really good one. It's just a bit of comedy. And as far as books go, Jamie gave me this amazing book called How to Change Your Mind, The New Science of Psychedelics.
Cool.
Haven't quite got through it yet, but I was like, you know what, I'm going to give this a go, because it's not usually my cup of tea, but I'm going to read it and see what happens. But I'm loving it so far. It's good to look within, I guess.
If you ever want to have a chat with anyone, look up Luke Williams from Dead Letter Circus, the drummer. He'll he's very knowledgeable about that sort of stuff. He and some of the band went on pilgrimage in the Amazon and stuff.
Oh yeah.
A few years ago.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
They're like way into it. So, and he's now a doof DJ, so I'm sure he knows all about that sort of stuff.
I bet he does. Amazing. Yeah. So it's a definitely highly recommend book. And there was one more podcast. Oh, some mates of mine put out a new podcast called Mission Reset. It's about it's a hypothetical podcast about if the Earth was destroyed and a spaceship was sent to Mars fast-tracked, who would we take with us? So it's like boy bands. Who else is there? There's like female front women, Disney princesses. It's like, who would we take on this trip to Mars? Who could we not do without on the new planet? So that's a really good one. It's called Mission Reset. It's a really good one to check out.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm always big on the end of the world scenarios. I love that sort of shit.
Yeah, that's right. Ah, there he is. He's
back. Hey, hello, me. And finally, your favorite riff, which I hate putting people on the spot, but
oh man, there's so many.
Maybe just to rattle off a handful that come to mind. I think I'm going to put together a playlist anyway, so maybe
Can I give you 2? Can I give you the favorite riff that I've ever written?
Perfect.
And because it's recent, and the other one of a band that I love. So I reckon this is an obscure one, but I reckon the middle section of Blind Faith by Dream Theater has got to be one of my favorite riffs.
Okay.
Like it's awesome. Odd Times, such a good riff. Okay. So that's one of my favorites. But my favorite one that I've ever written was the end of Star's End on this EP.
Okay.
It's like the last two and a bit minutes where after Felicity sings "I'm Not Faithless Anymore," that whole outro. Yep. I rewrote that. That's my favorite riff I've ever written so far, I'll say.
That's
not
excellent.
To toot my own horn, but I am promoting the EP, so.
No, that's great. I've listened to the front end a fair bit, but I don't think I quite got all the way down there. So it's something for me to check out now.
Yeah. Please do. That'd be great.
That's awesome. I did think there was a couple of things I thought with the Sagan quote, and then also the Ad Astra course, and then this is Ascension now, and there's. You guys, someone's got an obsession with the heavens. Who's doing the lyrics?
Oh yeah, Jamie. Yeah, that's 100% Jamie. Oh, but we all love it. We all love space. We all love the kind of the universe and the stars, and it's just awesome. So yeah, I love Jamie's lyrics. He's got such an amazing way with words. But yeah, it's very much it's very much Jamie.
That's great, and also the Norwegian influence, Mjolnir and the having the awe in your name.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's yeah, we've got a bit of a soft spot for Nordic culture, I guess.
That's great. Great. Well, thanks, Loko. Thanks for being on Riffing with me. That's very insightful, and you're my
Thank you so
first,
much.
like,
Thanks for having me.
you're the first person sort of in the expanded circle that I've ever spoken to. So.
Oh, awesome! That's so good to hear.
So
Well, it's
very
been
good.
a pleasure, man. It's good chat to you. Hit me up if you want to come to our show. We'll catch
Yeah,
up for
cool,
a
man.
schooner.
Absolutely.